Good morning. I just, again, I'm going to speak very briefly. I want to get into our speakers today so you can hear their stories and their highlights. I'm the director of the Tribal Healthy Homes Network, and I also manage the Partnership for Air Matters, which is the organization that, if you were on last week's webinar, I may have mentioned, but we are the program that assembles, ships the toolkits, does the technical assistance and the training. We're a nonprofit organization in Washington State, and we assemble and ship them at cost. And then Tribal Healthy Homes Network covers our expenses for all our training and technical assistance. So just in case you're wondering the relationship between those two organizations, wanted to explain that's how we operate. Very briefly, just a few
You're
things.
breaking up just a little. Sorry.
Oh dear. Okay. Not much I can do about that. Is that any better?
It is better just once in a while. So maybe, yeah, just go slowly and we'll catch most of it.
It will help. All right. I just want to start before I begin and thank the Tulalip tribes. These are some pictures of friends, children, and grandchildren. And the Tulalip tribes have, since Tribal Healthy Homes Network was established, have been the host. They support our organization, and they also are where we do a lot of our pilot work. So I wanted to explicitly thank them. Just a reminder that at the end of each webinar today, today, including next week, we'll be raffling off a full toolkit, sending it to you. And that for those who complete and participate in all three of the webinars, we'll also be sending out a certificate of completion. We do have the recorded versions of the webinar, so if you missed last week, we will be sending that out probably on Wednesday. If you were registered, you'll receive a copy of that, or you can just reach out to us and we'll send it to you. Erin, how's the audio?
Good.
Okay, all right, just a few more points here. Just to step back for a minute and emphasize that the purpose of this webinar series and a lot of our work and interest around indoor air is that if we cannot effectively communicate the risks, which are often invisible, odorless, and tasteless, we're going to have a very hard time encouraging either behavior change within residents or to get our clinical staff and our pharmacists and childcare facilities and our housing departments to change any practices with how they maintain or build or operate a building or a home. So probably one of the most important parts of our work is to explain and convince people that a risk exists and how to measure it, observe it, and address it. So you know, as an example, many of these things exist within a single family home, within multifamily homes, within workplaces. It varies, but almost all of these are invisible and odorless. And as I mentioned last week when I talked about social marketing, was the idea that in order to get people or departments or programs to make behavior change, it often is more successful when people are solving the problems independently versus being taught. And that when they're working hands-on and when they're seeing something, we're all more likely to be a little bit more engaged. So a few principles of that, I described these last week, is just active participation in the learning process is more effective than passively receiving knowledge. You know, discovery learning and hands-on requires people to sort of ask questions to expand their thinking, explore their own answers, and generally it produces stronger learning outcomes, meaning, you know, when we learn on our own, when we discover something on our own and problem solve, we're more likely to have that knowledge be embedded. And I shared that with social marketing, but that was the rationale in part behind the Air Matters toolkits. I won't go through this, but if you're not familiar with them, you'll learn more about them today. These are the tools in the kit on the right, as well as future tools that we're looking at. And again, just as a reminder for those of you who are new to the toolkits, they're not a replacement for an in-home assessment, though they are often used and can complement an in-home inspection. Repairs and mitigation need to be done, but then when they're done, for example, we see housing departments bring in the kit as a way to reinforce certain things for the resident to do. And they're not a holistic intervention. They often need to be supplemented with other efforts, such as patient education on asthma medication. We do advocate that using tools, whether it's your own toolkits that you've created and assembled, whether it's the Air Matters kit, but they're very useful when trust is a barrier to entering homes, and you may have encountered that. Whether you're part of our tribal audience or we have many non-tribal partners who use the toolkits and who we work with. In many cases, of course, they're just homes you cannot access for a variety of reasons. And the tools help people learn on their own about the risks. And of course, toolkits are very useful when there's limited staff time and resources and you can't personally reach every resident. And then, the tools actually are one way we can try to make indoor air quality real, because as you know, there's sort of the axiom is if you can measure it, it actually exists. Just close with this slide showing some of the tribes and communities that have helped distribute over 1,800 toolkits since the program's inception. And then I'm going to just stop here because that's where I announce the raffle winner. We have a couple polls we'll also do at the end. So I'll go ahead and mute myself, and Aaron, if you want to go ahead and move us over to Cindy Jansen.